Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in this world, whatever time you're deciding to consume this piece of media. I'd like to talk about the US midterms elections upcoming in a few weeks, and I'm doing this in a 9-part series, particular regarding interstate regions. So this is part 1 of 9. Today we're talking about New England, which means states of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island and Vermont. I'm going to discuss these states in alphabetical order, and furthermore I will quickly explain what kind of elections there is, and I don't want this video to be 10 hours, so I'm just going to talk about 4 pieces. So the governor's elections, the Senate elections, House, and any ballot initiative statewide, because these I think are the most important things. So I'll talk a bit about every single one of them, and I don't really want to bother with anything lower on the ballot. Again, trying to save a lot of time instead of spending 20 hours on a video. Let's just hope we can fit everything into 15 minutes. I think that's preferable for both you and me. So, first off, state of Connecticut. There's a Senate election. There's a House elections, of course. The governor's being elected this time around. There are other state executive positions, even the state legislature itself, and there are some ballot measures. So let's get started, okay? Governor's election. This is Nat Lamont, Democrat. He's incumbent. Last time around he won by about 3% against Bob Stefanowski, and currently they're up for a rematch. And well, it's RCP has it at plus 11 for Lamont, 538 is plus 13. Then again, I think that RCP is a more accurate predictor of elections and the margins thereof, because 538 ABC affiliate, they kind of swing their vote in Democrat direction as part of the entire motion of unskewing the polls. Problem is they just add a few extra points to the Democrats regardless of crosstabs or any population differences. So for an example, it would be stating that Fox News makes a poll, and 538 would then say, okay, we take the response of this poll and then add 5 points to the Democrats. And that is just a bad way of polling. Regarding this election, Bob Stefanowski, he is running a horrible campaign, and he's not going to get anywhere near what it was last time around. It's going to be between 10 and 15. That's what I would expect for this election. It's not going to be much. Senate election, Richard Blumenthal against Leora Levy. So this is going to be quite interesting, because lately the polling has been moving more in the direction of Levi. So it could be close, it could be a surprise, but I think Mr. Blumenthal, Senator Blumenthal, he's just gonna get a safe victory, 10 to 15 points. It's not gonna be the same thing as 2016 when he won with almost 30. It's not gonna be that. It's gonna be closer to what he had in 2010. First district, Johnny Larson against Larry Laser. It's not gonna be much to talk about. It's gonna be more than 20 points. Second district, this is technically a little bit closer. Joe Courtney against Mike France. 538 is Courtney up by 7.5. RCP currently has it as a toss-up. This is the district in eastern Connecticut. I think Courtney's going to win again. 5 to 10 points. Somewhere in that range. It's going to be closer than last time. That's for sure. It's also going to be swing election. So 2020, I think it was a Democrat plus 7 year. It's not going to be that much. I can tell you that. It's going to be a Republican vote, probably by 3, 4, maybe 5, if the Democrats really are unlucky, which at that point would put this election more in a D+10 route. So Courtney's going to win, but not by much. 3rd District, Rosa DeLauro versus Leslie DeNardis. This is safe, pretty much. I mean, it's gotten closer from 2018 to 2020, but no. It's going to be a Democrat victory. Jim Hines against Jamie Stevenson. Same kind of story. Maybe it's going to be a little closer than 26, 23 points, but still no chance of a Republican victory. Johanna Hayes against George Logan. Now this is the closest seat that Connecticut has. This is north and western Connecticut, so bordering New York. It's going to be within 5 points, but I think still it's going to be a Democrat hold, and there's not much to further talk about. So overall, Governor Lamont re-elected. It's going to be a second term, and last, Senator Blumenthal re-elected. 2 Democrats in the Senate, 5 Democrats in the House. Going to be a complete sweep. And then there's one ballot measure statewide is regarding elections, and they want to institute early voting in state. So it's emergency measures during the pandemic. They want to make that permanent law. So it's kind of making the election system the same thing as Oregon and Washington state. So again, it's not really that complicated. Next up, Maine. This is a little bit of a weird state because of its ranked choice voting. Governor's election, it's going to be Janet Mills against Paul LePage. Now, both of these individuals held the rank of governor. LePage did in 2014. He won. Janet Mills won later, so it's kind of a flip. So you can see it's went from R+5 to D+8. So it's kind of a swingy thing. Polling in Maine, statewide, absolutely horrible. There, you just don't know what happens. You can't really figure it out. So the only thing I can say it's essentially a toss-up between between 2 individuals that both held the office of governor, and they both have a pretty good chance of winning. So when it comes to 538, I think putting Mills at +9, it's bunk, garbage. Just ignore him. It's gonna be this is a pure toss-up. 2 to 5 points. That's where I put the margin at. 1st District. This is Portland. This is that particular area. So southern Maine. This is urban territory. Shelley Pingree against Ed Tillander. Well, Pingree is gonna win safely. That's not really an issue at this point. It's just a safe seat. Next up, we have Maine 2nd. This is northern Maine. This is basically Steve King country, and the people that he kind of despises. So it's the people he describes in his books, that kind of stuff. So it's Jared Golden against Bruce Poliquin. This is funny because again, both of these individuals held this seat. Flipped in 2018 as part of the midterm wave year against former President Trump. And Golden won re-election by 6. And now we're at the point where the race is a pure toss-up. And I'm going to treat it as such. So in later videos, I will discuss every single toss-up. And I'm going to be doing that closely to the election. So it's going to be like early November, where I'm discussing every single one of these toss-up seats and give a final prediction on it. For now, I'm just going to treat it as a toss-up, and then we'll discuss it at a later stage to make it a little easier for all of us. So, to summarize, governorship, pure toss-up, 2nd seat in the House, pure toss-up. Next state, Massachusetts, and really this is the kind of state that we don't even have to consider anything for it. So, House seats, governor seat, state executives, state legislature, and some local races. There are ballot measures. We'll discuss them rather quickly. This is a state that we shouldn't really spend minutes or hours on because there's virtually nothing going on. Maura Haley against Jeff Deal. This is basically the race to see who would succeed Charlie Baker. And, well, Charlie Baker is kind of a Republican in name only. He has done nothing to actually support his Republican base. So you can kind of see it in the way that he won re-election. You're talking about a state that is safe Democrat in presidential cycles. It votes for the Democratic candidate by like 20-25 points. And if a Republican wins this seat by a handy margin like 32%, you are guaranteed to know that this Republican is not a Republican at all in his values. So, for that reason, Jeff Deal is kind of the opposite of what Charlie Baker is. He is actually a conservative. So for that reason, he's not going to win in Massachusetts. It's going to be an easy flip. Safe Democrat. It's going to be like 20-25%. And when it comes to these margins, I just write down more than 20 because I really don't care if it's 21, 22, 25. Doesn't care. I don't care. There's also not a point of me to say whether it's going to be 20 points or 30 or 50. I really don't give a shit. First seed, Richard McNeil against Dean Martelli. This is the first time in the past 3 House races that he actually is opposed. 2018, not a single candidate ran against him. 2020, nobody did. Now he has an opponent. So it's not going to be a 100% margin of victory. Instead, it's going to be like 20, 25. Who cares? He's going to be in Congress again, doing whatever he does. And it's Jim McGovern against Jeffrey Sosa, Paquette. And yeah, Jim McGovern, he wins comfortably always by like 30 points, so we don't even have to consider this. Easy victory, don't really bother with it. Laura Trahan against Dean Tran, same kind of story, easy seat. It's the entirety of Massachusetts. It's basically just Democrat country, and you have to be a real special guy if you want to win as a Republican, especially in today's climate. Jake Auchincloss, whatever, it sounds German. He is unopposed. This is the guy that defeated Joe Kennedy, or yeah, I think he primaried him, something like that, or Joe Kennedy retired, something like that. So safe seat. There's not really anything there. Catherine Clark, same kind of story. This is basically Boston. It's not going to happen anything here. Seth Moulton against Robert May, same kind of story. It's basically Boston or any outskirts thereof. It's not going to happen much. Then it's the 7th district, Ayanna Presley, same kind of story. This is like a D plus 40 district. There's not going to happen anything. There's not going to be like a hidden surprise where a Republican wins in downtown Boston. It's not going to happen. 8th District, Stephen Lynch. Same kind of story. It's not really opposed by any serious claims. Robert Burke. There's not much known about this guy. But then again, if you're a Republican running in Boston, you kind of expect to just lose. It's not going to happen anything. This is not going to be a cycle where suddenly there's one Republican representing the state on the federal level. That's not going to happen. There needs to be a really earth-shattering transition in order for this to kind of happen. 9th District, Bill Keating. He's going to win comfortably. This is probably the least Democrat district in the state. And this is like the western tip, I think, of Boston or Massachusetts, so it's not going to happen. Maura Healey is elected to succeed Charlie Baker, and for the rest, there are no changes. For ballot measures, the first one is to create a new tax bracket for anyone earning more than $1 million. This is kind of the make the rich pay movement. I expect this to pass, like in a 3-to-1 margin. They have the medical loss ratio. Basically what it says is that every single dentist has to make a plan to show what kind of loss ratio they would make, and anything above 83% has to be refunded to the covered clients. Third one is a restructuring of the alcohol licensing initiative. So basically, number of liquor licenses for each individual is reduced from 9 to 7, which means that you can only have 7 stores on your name when it comes to hard liquor. And when it comes to beer and wine, it increases to 18 from 9, which means that you can have twice the number of beer stores or wine stores. This also would permit individual supermarkets, I think, to sell alcoholic beverages. Or maybe that's the one in Colorado. Or it could be both, whatever. Furthermore, it prohibits in-store automation when it comes to alcohol sales, and it prohibits self-checkout lanes for alcohol, basically ensuring that anyone buying beer is of the age of majority, or in this case 21, because of federal BS. Furthermore, this one is a pretty funny one. It is the removing proof of citizenship requirement to achieve driver's licenses. So basically what the state of Massachusetts wants to do is grant driver's license to illegal immigrants, and driver's licenses are typically used for social security payments or applications, and in some states it is used as a voting requirement. So a state that has photo ID, they can say show us your passport, ID card, or show us your driver's license. So if these individuals then move from Massachusetts to, let's say, Ohio, or Nebraska, Kansas, Florida, they have voter ID requirements. And because they have a driver's license in Massachusetts, they can now vote in elections. So basically it says, illegal immigrants, you can now own a driver's license, you can use it to get social security payments, and you can now also use it to vote. Funny, right? New Hampshire. This is the battleground state within of this particular section of America, New England. There's a Senate race, there's House races, there's a governor's race, and in the case of New Hampshire and Vermont, they do it every 2 years instead of 4. There's some state legislative races as well. Don't really cover that. Governor's election. Chris Sununu against Tom Sherman. This is kind of the point where I'm saying rhinos are easy victory in the Northeast. And in this particular point, we have Chris Sununu wins by 7 in 2018, wins by more than 30 points in the 2020 election. And this is kind of the point we're saying, like, Sununu, he's done absolutely nothing to represent the Republican Party regarding protecting the border or fentanyl overdoses or gun rights. He's done nothing, basically. And again, he's going to cruise to re-election, safe margin. Don't even bother spending anything to try to unseat this guy. And at some point, when he's done being governor, he's probably going to run for Senate. And he's going to be absolutely useless in the Senate, so don't bother. Senate election, Maggie Hassan against Donald Baldock, or General Baldock, depending on who you're talking to. So this is a seat that Maggie Hassan won by, I think, 1,000 votes. Maybe a little more than that. So this is the first time that I'm going to introduce the RCP measure of ballot underestimation. Basically what it does is it says after polling done for the previous election cycles, there have been significant deviations from what the actual result is. And what RCP does is it takes this deviation and averages it out for the past 3 elections, so 2020, 2018 and 2016. And it takes the average mistake, applies it, and then switches it around. So at this point we're seeing that the Republicans are underestimated by almost 4%, which then, if we add it to the aggregate, we'll find that Hassan is leading by 2 points. And I think there's some new polling that actually makes it closer than that. So this is going to be an election that is a pure toss-up. I don't think it's going to be a wider margin than 2%. So it could go either way. We're talking first at 2016, which was kind of congressional-wise, it was a Democrat year, and then presidentially it was a more Republican-leaning year, and then this cycle around it's a more Republican-leaning year. So if I had to put money on it, I think Hassan is going down. But then again, for now I'm going to put it in the toss-up column, and in a week I will discuss the toss-ups again, in which this Senate seat will again be discussed. First district, Chris Pappas against Carolyn Levitt. It's getting narrower, and Pappas is currently leading by about 5 points. Then again, Republicans are underestimated in this particular district, so it is a toss-up. I can't make it any clearer than it. I can't make it any brighter than this. This is one of the districts that we have to watch on election day. Annie Custer against Bob Burns for the second district. This is going to be a pretty easy victory. So it's going to be about 5 to 10 points, because it's now a Republican leading year, so it's going to shift a bit further. Overall, it's pretty obvious what's going to happen in this particular scenario. So Sununu is re-elected. Senate race is a toss-up. First district is a toss-up. Second district leans Democrat. So it's probably going to be one Democrat in the House, and the other one is going to be whatever. And in the Senate it's going to be the same. Ballot measures, I think there are 2. There's one for the Constitutional Convention, which is a question asked every 10 years to the people of New Hampshire. And I haven't seen any indicative polling on this, but probably it's going to be about a 50-50 margin. So basically it's trying to see if there's new constitutional amendments to be made. That's all. The second of the amendment is actually to abolish the office of Register of Probate amendment. So basically it's probate offices. They had most of their roles removed in 2011, and basically the only thing it does now is preserve documents. And the Republican Party in New Hampshire basically said, well, if it's just preserving documents, something else can do that, so this kind of office can be removed and we can save a lot of money on this. Tend to agree with them. Less government is usually better, because they operate in a more efficient manner, because there are less working parts in the machine, and if there are less working parts in the machines, then there's less chance of breakdown. So that's New Hampshire. Rhode Island, governor's election, house election, and a bunch of local seats that are up. Governors, it's going to be a 3-way race. Daniel McGee against Ashley Callett versus Elijah Gisarelli. I'm not good in the Italian pronunciations. So, McGee was the lieutenant governor under Gino Raimondo, and she won handily in 2018. I don't think this is up for debate. It's going to be a likely to safe district of the safe state for Democrat incumbent Daniel McGee. It's going to be probably around 15 to 20 points. It's not going to be surprised if it may be a little lower, but then again, completely dependent on what happens on the House races. So we have the first one, David Sisselin. This is eastern Rhode Island, which is basically Providence. Um, there's no question about it, he's gonna win. Like, comfortably. He doesn't even have to campaign, he can just spend his money doing whatever he wants. Second district is Seth Magaziner versus Alan Fung. This seat was occupied by Jim Langevin. He decided to retire. Probably because he saw this coming, but it appears that this is going to be one of the surprises in this midterm election, because Alan Fung is currently leading in the aggregate by about 6 to 7 points in western Rhode Island. So I'm going to say this, it's going to be a hot take. This is going to be a Republican flip, and it's going to be the first Republican to represent any district in New England for the last 5 to 10 years, something like that. Oh no, Bruce Poliquin did in 2016, so the first one since 2018 who represents any district in New England. So good job. So there's the first flip of the first house flip of the season. Vermont governor's race again once every 2 years. There's a Senate race because no, there's normally would have been one. This is the special election. There's a House race and there's some ballot measures. So the first one, Phil Scott against Brenda Siegel, and then there are 3 independents. Phil Scott, he is for the first time in 2 cycles he's reaching some opposition. So it's not going to be 40 points like it was in 2020, but it's actually going to be a little closer than that. Still going to be more than 20 points, but it's not going to be 40. I'm going to say that. Senate race, Patrick Lee, the incumbent, he decides to retire. I mean, he's like 90 years old, so good on him. Peter Welsh against Gerald Malloy. This is the fun part, because there's only been, in my opinion, one good poll in the entire season, and that is putting Peter Welsh up by 7. And every other poll I think is absolute garbage. So we're reaching a point where this may be close, but no. I think it's going to be between 5 and 10 points. It's going to be closer, leading to 10. Maybe it's going to even exceed 10, depending on these circumstances of the remaining ballot initiatives, which we're getting to shortly. Next we have Vermont at large. Becca Balint against Liam Madden, and then there's a libertarian contestant there as well. Look, Vermont, for the House races, they are at D plus 20 district, something like that. So there's not going to be a Republican in the House for this particular district. So, safe Democrat victory. So, Governor Scott re-elected. Peter Welsh is going to succeed in this case. Patrick Lee, and Balint is going to succeed Welsh. 2 ballot measure, 1 on slavery. Basically what it says is modifies the Article 1 of the Vermont Constitution, where it says slavery is prohibited, unless the individual has been ordered to by the courts. So the idea of the 13th Amendment, it says slavery is illegal, except when the courts order you to be enslaved. So that's kind of a thing that every single American would agree upon, that it should be removed from the 13th Amendment altogether. So I don't know why Congress isn't doing anything about that. But then again, have they ever been useful? So this is going to be clearly passing it. I would not be surprised if it's passed unanimously by the population. The second one is basically the establishing a right to abortion in the state of Vermont. Here's a little problem though, because the language specifically says the right to reproductive freedom and prohibiting any government infringement unless justified by state interest. Here's a little problem with the phrasing of that, because the indication now makes it that 1. All restrictions are a violation of the Vermont Constitution, which makes late-term abortion legal, including the post-birth abortion legal. So that is going to be a thing that violates the Constitution in and of itself, because Article 1, Chapter 1, or Chapter 1, Article 1 of the Vermont Constitution also says that every Vermont citizen has the right to life. So, Article 1, you say you have the right to live, and in Article 22, you kind of contradict that. So, I don't know what's going to happen with this one. This purely was a Democrat push. So this was it for New England. This also concludes part 1. And I'll speak to you shortly regarding the other 8 parts of this series. Thank you kindly for listening. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you have any tips and tricks, feel free to ask. Please like the video, subscribe if you want more content like this, and share the content if you think it's valuable for others to know. Thank you kindly again for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you very much.